My fiancé gave me a soul-swapping jade, causing someone to possess my body, leaving me a wandering ghost. Yet he lived lovingly with the one who took over my body. They used my princess identity to enjoy a lifetime of glory, bearing children, and climbing the ranks. I drifted alone in misery, my soul with nowhere to belong. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the moment he gifted me the jade pendant. I gladly accepted it, then turned around and gave the pendant to a prostitute. This lifetime, if I don't toy them to death, I lose. I never thought I'd witness myself die with my own eyes. Princess Jiakeng, Zhao Huayin, had a final rally before death, smiling as she recounted her happy and fulfilling life. A loving marriage, filial children. Thou short-lived. She had no regrets in this life. I watched coldly as Gi Tingshuan, the prince consort who was supposed to be mine, and the children who looked just like me, all burst into grief-stricken wails the moment she breathed her last. No one ever mentioned me, the real Zhao Huayin who had long been stripped of everything. The man before me, he was my husband. Yet he wasn't my husband, they were children born from my body. Yet they weren't my children. They were devils who climbed up by stepping on my life, the chief culprits who caused my death. Perhaps years of accumulated hatred erupted all at once. I actually shed tears of blood in my spirit form. I shrieked at Gu Tingshuan's nauseating face, my voice piercing and shrill. Gu Tingshuan, if I can have my revenge, I won't rest until one of us is dead. But then my body started to gradually become transparent. I thought my time had come, so I closed my eyes and prepared to accept my fate and reincarnate. But unexpectedly, Gu Tingshuan's annoying voice echoed in my ears again. Your Highness, this jade pendant is a family heirloom of the Gue family, meant to be given to my future wife. Now that His Majesty has bestowed this marriage, giving this jade pendant to the princess couldn't be more fitting. Wait, why is it Gu Tingshuan's voice again? I only felt my palm turn ice cold. Opening my eyes, a jade pendant was unmistakably lying in my hand. It is the soul-swapping jade, and the Gu Tingshuan before me was young and handsome. I had actually returned to the time when Gu Tingshuan gave me the jade pendant. Your Highness, seeing me in a daze, Gu Tingshuan spoke again. A smile hung on his face, yet a barely perceptible impatience flashed in his eyes. I gripped the jade pendant tightly and raised a smile. Since it is a gift from a Xuan, I'll definitely wear it on me every day. Hearing me say this, a genuine smile of having succeeded flashed through Gu Tingshuan's eyes. The jade pendant represents the Gu Manor's affection for Your Highness. I hope Your Highness will keep it safe. I nodded in agreement, then made up an excuse to say goodbye. Having achieved his goal, Gu Tingshuan naturally wouldn't pester me any further. I returned to the carriage and casually tossed the jade pendant into a corner. I covered my face and wept bitterly, scaring Chunj. Chun'er was my personal maidservant. In my previous life, she served beside Lu Yi, who had already been replaced by another soul. Because she had served me since childhood, she noticed the abnormality after I was body snatched. Because of this, she was tortured to death by Lu Yi. Your Highness, have you been wronged somehow? Chunj was flustered, holding a handkerchief to wipe my tears. It is nothing, let's return to the palace. Also, help me find someone on the verge of death, someone of lowly status with a complicated background. If they want a perfect ending, why should they get to continue their happy lives by stepping on my fate? In this life, status, glory, love, they won't get a single one of them. I will turn everything they desire into nothing. In my hands, they won't be able to live or die. I knew that 10 days later would be the day I was body snatched in my previous life. So I had them hurry to find a suitable person for me. When they brought a dying prostitute to me, I was indeed troubled. Your Highness, this Qiangniang is a prostitute from the brothel. The doctor said medicine cannot save her. It'll be within these few days. She has a filthy disease, please do not approach, lest it soil your eyes. They searched all over the capital and only found this one who matched what I wanted. That woman's face was covered in filth, but one could still vaguely tell she was a delicate person. I dismissed everyone. I walked up to her, crouched down, and told her why I was looking for her. I knew the pain of being body snatched, so I was unwilling to force her, even if I could promise endless wealth and glory to her family and friends. After hearing this, the woman's face remained calm. She only opened her eyes, lifeless, like a withered old person, and asked just one thing. "After you are done using this body, can you burn it?" Seeing my confusion, she smiled self-mockingly, "So that my black-hearted parents and brother won't take it to arrange a ghost marriage, making me still firmly under their control even in the underworld. They tied me up and sold me to a brothel, already ruining my whole life. I don't want them to squeeze every last drop from my bones, even after I am dead. I am not willing to accept that." Her voice was like an old woman's, only carrying gnashing hatred when mentioning her parents and brother. I understood and asked, "Do you want revenge?" Hearing the words revenge, the woman seemed to use all her strength to grab my arm, or really. I nodded. "I am a princess. Everything you want, I will give you." This was the last thing I could do for her. Gu Tingshuan gave me a jade pendant, only stating that it was for the future mistress of the Guyu household. In my previous life, I admired him, so naturally I was delighted by this, and immediately wore the jade pendant on me. But I didn't expect that in just 10 days, my soul would leave my body, and Gu Tingshuan held me, calling her Ye with utmost tenderness. It turned out Gu Tingshuan had a childhood sweetheart named Lu Yi, who had been frail and sickly since young. When she was on her last breath, and Gu Tingshuan's search for medical help proved futile, he heeded the words of a demonic priest and conceived the idea of seizing another's body. He exhausted himself for her, personally selecting 300 women. But either their family backgrounds weren't good enough, or their looks weren't outstanding enough, and he feared they wouldn't pass my scrutiny when the time came. After much deliberation, Gu Tingshuan decided to take a big gamble and set his sights on me. I was the only legitimate princess born to the emperor and empress, with noble status and stunning beauty. Certainly wouldn't be beneath his childhood sweetheart, and I was already engaged to him, making it perfectly legitimate. So he gifted me the soul-swapping jade given by that demonic priest, and through a ritual sent Lu Yi's soul into my body. And with Lu Yi's body dead, my soul had nowhere to go. I was body snatched, and since I wasn't supposed to die, no ghost messengers came to claim my life. So I became a wandering ghost, drifting aimlessly day after day. I could only watch with hatred as this shameless couple lived lovingly together, using my identity, stepping on my life, enjoying everything that originally belonged to me. In my past life, I was separated from my parents by the boundary of life and death. To prevent my imperial father and mother from noticing any flaws, he reduced that woman's contact with them. Aside from necessary palace banquets, Gu Tingshuan rarely let her enter the palace. My imperial father and mother missed their daughter dearly, so Gu Tingshuan had the children she gave birth to enter the palace to keep the two elders company. Those were children born from my body, looking extremely similar to me. My imperial father and mother, out of their love for me, doted extremely on these two children who carried my blood and bone. Even after my imperial father abdicated to my elder brother, he still had my brother grant titles to the children. In her previous life, Princess Jiakong lived a life of honor and glory. The only pity was that beauty is often short-lived. She passed away before even reaching 30. Prince Consort Gu Tingshuan was devoted to her alone for their entire lives. Her son inherited the title, and her daughter had also been granted the title of Gunju a year ago. She enjoyed everything Gu Tingshuan had won for her, becoming the object of envy for most noble ladies in the capital. I placed the soul-swapping jade beside Chongyang and had people settle her properly. Since Gu Tingshuan and Lu Yi wanted to reap without sowing, let them bear the consequences of stealing another's body. I want to see whether, in this life going from a princess to a prostitute, Gu Tingshuan and Lu Yi can still stay lovingly devoted like in the previous life. Because I had to deal with Chongyang's matter, I returned to the palace a bit late. I happened to run into my elder brother coming out of Mother's palace. Seeing me return late, he put on a stern face and scolded, "Why are you back so late? How improper." I've been by my elder brother's side since childhood, and I know he is the type with a cold face but a soft heart. He was raised as the crown prince from a young age, educated by the grand tutor to be serious and unsmiling. I often grumbled to my imperial father and mother that my elder brother was a grand tutor without the white beard, and sometimes felt he was too controlling and strict with me. But, after more than 10 years apart, hearing these familiar words again now, before I could even react, tears suddenly fell. Imperial brother was so startled that his face instantly changed color. He stood before me at a loss. "You, don't cry." Imperial brother wasn't being harsh with you. I was just afraid you'd get hurt." I wiped my tears while laughing. I know everything." Father Emperor and Mother Empress had come out from the hall at some point, and seeing me cry, thought Imperial brother had bullied me. Just as they were about to scold him, I threw myself into their arms. What princess? What etiquette and rules? All of that can go to hell right now. I was just a daughter who had been away from her parents for too long. I just missed them too much. After sharing some tender moments with my parents and brother, I returned to my own Kaoyang palace. I didn't tell them about today's incident, because I knew, with Father Emperor's temper, if I told him, he'd probably have Gu Tingshuan dragged out and beheaded right away. But I didn't want him to die that easily. Kaoyang Palace was nearby. When I returned, Donga was sitting in a chair, directing some lower-ranked palace maids and eunuchs in their work. Chunj and Donga were both first-rank palace maids who served by my side. Chunj was warm, kind, and fiercely loyal, responsible for my food and daily life. Donga was meticulous and skilled at management, so she was in charge of the palace affairs of Kaoyang Palace. Seeing me return, she got up from the chair and bounced over, looking me up and down. "How was your Highness's conversation with our soon-to-be prince consort today?" I didn't answer, but looked at her with a half-smile. Simone dragged Donga away. Beat her to death, as soon as I spoke. Not only the servants of Jiaoyang Palace, but even Chunj was stunned. "Your Highness, you must be joking." Donga came to her senses. All the teasing and jest from before vanished from her face, replaced by endless panic and terror. She fell to her knees with a thud, rushed over to hug my legs and started crying. "Your Highness, Donga has diligently managed palace affairs for you. I don't know where I offended you today." I raised my hand and slapped Donga. "I had no idea you already wanted to become sisters with this princess." Donga lay prostrate on the ground, her face turning deathly pale the moment she heard my words. In my previous life, even though Lu Yi tried to minimize her visits to the palace, she still couldn't avoid meeting the Emperor and Empress. Donga had served me since childhood and knew my preferences like the back of her hand. Gu Tingshuan lured her into the scheme against me with the promise of becoming the prince consort's concubine. He also had her reveal my preferences, helping Lu Yi pass the test with my imperial father and mother. The Yongning Marquis title was hereditary for 3 generations, and Gu Tingshuan happened to be the 3rd generation. He wanted to continue the Gu family's glory, so he set his sights on me. Donga and Gu Tingshuan worked together from inside and outside, tampering with my horse, created the opportunity for Gu Tingshuan to rescue me at the horse grounds. He hid his affair with Lu Yi from me, making me fall in love with him at first sight, which led to Father Emperor's imperial decree of marriage. His ambition was too great. He coveted my status, yet being a proud man, he had to humble himself by my side. His pride was wounded, so he grew to dislike me even more. That is when he thought of the body-snatching method. An obedient, docile wife with noble status was what he sought his whole life. Things having come to this, how could Donga not know that I already knew everything? Her face was ashen, her lips trembling as she crawled toward me, begging for mercy with tears streaming down. She said Gu Tingshuan seduced her. Everything was Gu Tingshuan's fault. I crouched down, gripped her chin, and looked her in the eye. When Gu Tingshuan serves this princess in the future, it can only be called the prince consort attending the bedchamber. Without this princess's permission, who gave him the nerve to take a concubine? Donga, you've grown up by this princess's side since childhood. Are you really this short-sighted? It is true you were bewitched, but it is also true you wanted to harm me. For the sake of you growing up with me since childhood, I'll let you keep your body intact. In the end, Donga chose a cup of poisoned wine, and I watched with my own eyes as she breathed her last before me. Pass down the order. If anyone dares to leak even the slightest bit about what happened at Jiaoyang Palace today, Donga is fate today will be theirs tomorrow. Chunj learned the truth of the matter, and was so furious she trembled all over, spitting. That backstabbing traitor, truly hateful. So what will your highness do next? Next, I had someone quietly dispose of Dongyi's body, then found someone to imitate her handwriting to tip off Guting Xuan. After making an example out of her, everyone in Chaoyang Palace was now on edge, all consciously keeping their mouths shut. This continued for several days. Then Guting Xuan had someone deliver a message to Donga. They were going to make their move, following the time on the message. On this day, I very cooperatively and inexplicably fainted. At the same time, the daughter of a 6th-rank official's family in the capital died of illness. After being treated by the imperial physician for a day and a night, I slowly came to. Guting Xuan squeezed to my bedside more eagerly than anyone else, holding my hand. Your Highness, do you still feel unwell anywhere? Guting Xuan looked at me with surprise and nervousness while using his eyes to signal behind him. Also keeping watch by my bedside were Imperial Father, Imperial Mother, and Imperial Brother. Imperial Father and Imperial Mother thought he was anxious about me, so they didn't say anything about his rude behavior. I imitated Lu Yi's expression from my past life and stared at him for a while, just not speaking. He looked at me with a slight frown. What is wrong? I spoke somewhat aggrievedly. I want to eat 100 flowers cake. Guting Xuan's pupils contracted sharply. The main ingredient of 100 flowers cake is peony flowers. And Lu Yi was allergic to peony flowers. I could clearly feel that Guting Xuan's hand holding mine began to tremble. Xuan, are you cold? Guting Xuan, having come to his senses, abruptly shook off my hand. Then realizing his reaction was too extreme, he panicked and immediately explained. This subject was just overly worried about your highness the princess. Father Emperor and Mother Empress had no mind to pay attention to him at this moment, all crowding over to ask about this and that with concern. But Imperial Brother looked at him as if deep in thought. Only after the Imperial physician checked my pulse again and concluded that nothing was wrong with me did they finally feel completely relieved and left Jiaoyang Palace to handle state affairs. Before leaving, Guting Xuan asked me, in a roundabout way, the jade pendant this subject gave to the princess a few days ago, is it still worn on your person? My mother is thinking of entering the palace to pay her respects to you in a few days. If she sees you wearing it, she would surely be delighted. I took out a jade pendant from under the pillow. It was extremely similar to the jade pendant Guting Xuan gave me, just the quality was different, and it lacked some of that sinister aura. Here, isn't this? Oh my, how did it turn into the jade pendant Imperial Brother gave me? I took out the jade pendant and examined it very carefully. Then I looked with eyes full of guilt at Guting Xuan, who was staring fixedly at the jade pendant in my hand. Xuan, I forgot to tell you, before you gave me the jade pendant, Imperial Brother had also gifted me one. That day after you gave me the jade pendant. On my way back to the palace, I ran into a beggar. I had someone send the jade pendant Imperial Brother gifted me to her, so she could exchange it for silver to treat her illness. It was getting dark at the time, and I couldn't see clearly. I am afraid I mistook the jade pendant you gave me for the one Imperial Brother gifted me. After hearing my words, what was there that Guting Xuan didn't understand? He was so angry that veins bulged on his forehead. Yet he didn't dare accuse me of giving his jade pendant to a beggar. He could only stand up and rebuke me for disrespecting Imperial Brother. How could your highness casually give away a gift from the crown prince to a beggar? If your highness truly wanted to save a life, you could have given her a hairpin or a handkerchief, both things that could be exchanged for money to save a life. I felt extremely wronged after being rebuked by him, but before I could speak, Imperial Brother spoke first. It is just a lifeless object. Even if Jiasheng threw it away, I wouldn't care. However, young Master Gu, you've overstepped your bounds. Gu Tingshuan hurriedly knelt to apologize. That jade pendant is a royal object. This subject only fears. Since it was imperially bestowed, I will have Father Emperor grant another jade pendant to the GU residents. Jiakung is tired. You may withdraw now. Imperial brother cut off Gu Tingshuan's words and told him to leave the palace early. No matter how unwilling he was, Gu Tingshuan could only obediently take his leave. He was too overconfident, to the point that he hadn't even noticed Donga's disappearance. After Gu Tingshuan left, Imperial brother sat by my bed. What exactly are you doing? Yes, he had never given me a jade pendant at all. It was me who had someone do it overnight. I just borrowed Imperial brother's name. Facing Imperial brother's probing gaze, I took a deep breath. I laid out Gu Tingshuan's scheme completely, and Imperial brother was so angry his hands clenched with cracking sounds. Gu Tingshuan, how audacious. Don't be afraid, little sister. Your brother will have Father Emperor order the Yongning Marquis Manor stripped of its title and confiscated. A warm current surged through my heart. I knew he would react this way, so I quickly grabbed his sleeve. But wouldn't that kind of death be letting him off too easy? Imperial brother, let me handle this myself. I can deal with this matter properly. He dared to use such sinister methods on me, so I must make him pay the price. I laid out my plan completely to Imperial brother, asking him to temporarily keep it from Father Emperor and Mother Empress for me. To avoid arousing Gu Tingshuan's suspicion, he even went to ask Father Emperor to bestow a jade pendant as an apology to the Guyu family for my mistake. For a while, all the nobles in the capital knew that not only did Princess Jiakung deeply adore Gu Tingshuan, even the emperor and the crown prince favored Gu Tingshuan highly. Meanwhile, Gu Tingshuan lived in the false prosperity of being praised highly by everyone, while anxiously searching all over the capital for the beggar I had mentioned. After all, that was his childhood sweetheart who grew up with him. I heard that after Liu Yi woke up in Changnyang's body, she couldn't believe her current situation. Every day, she either shouted that she was Princess Jiakung or a young lady from an official's family. She even went mad trying to find Gu Tingshuan, claiming she was the beloved of the Yongning Marquis's heir. Only after I became a wandering soul in my previous life did I learn that using the soul-switching jade for body possession wasn't foolproof. Although the soul-switching jade could exchange souls, if the original owner's will was strong enough, there was still a chance to return to one's own body. But Gu Tingshuan, to cut off any chance of my return, lied that I was sick and had my imperial father and mother send their fingertip blood mixed with cinnabar for Liu Yi to wear. The blood of my closest kin protected Liu Yi, who stole my body, and completely cut off any chance of my survival. But my fate was incompatible with Liu Yi's. She couldn't bear my destiny, and still had to suffer the consequences of that dark sorcery, ultimately meeting an early death despite her beauty. And in this life, Qiangyang, whose body she possessed, had long harbored thoughts of death. She probably ascended to paradise long ago, refusing to look upon this filthy world ever again. Liu Yi's original body is dead, and no one is fighting her for Qiangyang's body. Though I don't know if their fates are compatible, it is enough for me. I sneered at the report from my subordinates and casually tossed the paper onto the candle. Since she is his beloved, how could this princess stand in the way of lovers meeting? I had someone lift the confinement on Liu Yi, then leaked information about Gu Tingshuan to her. The next day, news of the prince consort entangled with a brothel woman on the street spread throughout the capital. That day, Chunj and I waited early on the road where Gu Tingshuan would appear. When Gu Tingshuan appeared, I watched from afar as a filthy woman ran toward him. She threw herself onto Gu Tingshuan, crying out through tears, "Brother Xuan, it is me, Yi." Gu Tingshuan's expression changed. Seeing her wretched state, a pained look appeared in his eyes. Just as he was about to help Liu Yi up, he heard a group of people shouting from afar, "She is a prostitute who escaped from Zuichun Pavilion. She is infected with disease. Don't dirty your noble body, my lord." The people shouted so loudly that half the street could hear. From afar, I saw Gu Tingshuan's face twist for a moment, a flash of disgust in his eyes. His outstretched hand meant to help Lu Yi froze in place. To help or not to help, neither felt right. In the end, he could only grit his teeth, reach out one hand to steady Lu Yi, and silently put some distance between them. Liu Yi noticed his actions and screamed hysterically. "You are disgusted by me. You are disgusted by me, aren't you? Brother Xuan, I am your Yi. I am the young lady of Compiler Liu's household. No, I am a princess. I am Princess Jiaqing." Gu Tingshuan heard her shout like this, and immediately berated. Where did this madwoman come from, daring to call out the princess's title directly? Lu Yiri looked at Gu Tingshuan in disbelief, but before she could continue shouting, the madam from Zuichun Tower, who came to catch her, viciously slapped her and said fiercely, "To cure your illness, how much silver did my Zuichun Tower spend? You cheap hoof, you still dare to run, watch me beat you to death." Then a group of people swarmed up and punched and kicked Lu Yi. Gu Tingshuan couldn't bear to watch any longer and spoke up to stop their actions. The onlooking commoners also began to praise Gu Tingshuan one after another. After all, it is a human life. This lord is kind-hearted and will surely be rewarded. Having watched enough of the show, I had Chunj carry some snacks and appeared as if by chance encounter. I was very surprised and, suppressing my disgust, intimately closed the distance with him. Why is a Xuan here? Gu Tingshuan didn't expect me to appear and tried hard to suppress the panic in his eyes. I happened to pass by here, saw these people beating this woman, and couldn't bear to watch, so I spoke up to stop them. This place is filthy, you're high. You should go home soon. Gu Tingshuan wanted me to disappear from here quickly, lest I hear some crazy talk that I shouldn't hear. Yet I praised Gu Tingshuan, my gaze falling on Lu Yi. A Xuan truly is a kind-hearted person. At this point, how could Lu Yi not see through my identity? She lay prostrate on the ground, glaring venomously at me who was acting intimately with Gu Tingshuan. Her eyes were blood-red as she lunged at me frantically, but was stopped by the guards beside me. "It is you. You stole my identity. You stole everything from me. I am the real Zhao Huayan. I should be Princess Jiacheng." With me present, Gu Tingshuan couldn't directly order someone to shut her up, and could only watch helplessly as Lu Yi spouted such crazy talk. It seems Gu Tingshuan was very confident in his plan, and must have often told Lu Yi about the blissful life after the plan succeeded, which made Lu Yi so deeply obsessed, nearly driven to madness. I smiled faintly, truly a mad woman. Gu Tingshuan was originally sweating profusely, but immediately seized the opportunity when he heard my words. Such mad ravings shouldn't sully your highness's ears. After I returned to the palace, I had people spread the news of Gu Tingshuan's incident today everywhere, embellishing it along the way. I heard that Lu Yi later simply threw caution to the wind, ran to the front of Yongning Marquise's residence, and made a scene rolling around, claiming she and Gu Tingshuan had already pledged themselves to each other, demanding Gu Tingshuan take responsibility for her. And Gu Tingshuan simply had people tie Lu Yiri up and throw her back to Zuchun Tower, and publicly declared that he had never set foot in Zuchun Tower, and that he was merely being slandered. But the fact that he was publicly pulling and tugging with a brothel woman on the street is undeniable. All his actions now are merely locking the barn after the horse has bolted. Soon, memorials impeaching Du Tingshuan flew onto Imperial Father's desk like snowflakes. Imperial Father rebuked Dingshuan for tarnishing the royal reputation, and I also refused to see Gu Tingshuan. Left with no choice, he could only send another message to Dongge. The message, aside from a few sour remarks, was asking what I thought of him now. After all, having lost the soul-swapping jade as his chess piece, he could only follow the original plan to become my prince consort. I had someone reply to him, just say that this princess is very hurt, but still believes in him, and hopes he can quell the current public opinion. I wanted to push him into a corner, to see what choice he would make between his beloved and his own future. Soon I knew the answer. Those sent to assassinate Lu Yi were all captured by my shadow guards. During this period, she was either beaten by the brothel madam, or insulted and beaten by Changyang's parents and brothers. Now, being hunted again, She was huddled in a corner at this moment, her eyes vacant, already so frightened she had wet herself. I had them keep someone alive, who confessed in front of Lu Yi that Gu Tingshuan was the mastermind behind this. I looked at her mockingly, each word cutting to the heart. The young man you've been yearning for not only used vicious schemes to ruin you into becoming a prostitute for others, pleasure for the sake of his future, but now he wants to kill you too. In the future, he'll marry, have children, and rise to great heights. Yet he has condemned you to eternal damnation. Lu Yi, can you accept this? She couldn't accept it, so she wept bitterly on this bloody night, gnashing her teeth with hatred trembling all over. I won't let him get away with this. I won't let him get away with this. I won't let him get away with this. Very good, this was exactly the effect I wanted. I had someone hide Lu Yi away, and sent word to Gu Tingshuan that Lu Yi was dead. Your Highness, why not just go with the flow and actually kill Lu Yi? Chunj spoke up indignantly on my behalf. Doing it myself would be so boring. Gu Tingshuan's birthday is coming up soon, isn't it? I'll send him a grand gift. Gu Tingshuan hadn't been granted an audience for several days and was burning with anxiety. He actually wanted to request a meeting with Donga. I had my imperial brother suppress the memorials impeaching Gu Tingshuan, and had Donga reply to him that I intended to petition Father Emperor to elevate the Guyu family's marquis title to duke, and had my imperial brother invite Gu Tingshuan to hold his birthday banquet at the palace. Everyone said this was a sign of the royal family's approval of Gu Tingshuan. He had resolved his immediate worries and didn't need to think about future troubles. For a while, good fortune lifted his spirits, and wherever he went, he held his head high like a proud peacock. On the day of the birthday banquet, I even used my own name to invite all the notable nobles in the capital to the palace. Gu Tingshuan wore an indigo brocade robe, a smile hanging on his face, and said with affected modesty, "Your Highness, such a grand occasion. I am afraid I cannot accept it." I raised a cup of wine to toast him. How could that be? This stage was built by me for you in the first place. Without you, the lead actor, making an appearance, how could the show go on? As today's protagonist, Gu Tingshuan was gradually surrounded by people flattering him, but in an inconspicuous corner, a woman dressed in palace-maid attire was quietly approaching Gu Tingshuan. While everyone was immersed in the atmosphere of pleasantries and small talk, the woman pulled out a pair of scissors and stabbed precisely into Gu Tingshuan's groin. The surroundings fell silent instantly. Then came piercing screams of terror. Those who had been flattering Gu Tingshuan now all distanced themselves from him. Gu Tingshuan himself tried to resist, raising his hand, only to find his entire body drained of strength. He could only lie on the ground, writhing in pain. I had put something in the wine I toasted him with, and that woman was none other than Lu Yi, whom I had arranged to be brought in. Watching her continue stabbing him like a madwoman, only then did I raise my hand, letting the imperial guards leisurely come over and restrain Lu Yi. By now, the hem of Gu Tingshuan's indigo robe had already been stained red with blood. He still looked at me unwillingly, his lips opening and closing. Imperial physician. After making out his words, I scoffed, carelessly toying with the crack-covered soul-swapping jade in my hand. I watched him build his tower high, watched him entertain his guests, watched his tower collapse. There is no greater pleasure in this world than this. I dismissed everyone and summoned my imperial father and imperial mother. Gu Tingshuan's parents also came upon hearing the news. Upon learning their son would be no different from a eunuch from now on, they tearfully begged the emperor to thoroughly investigate today's incident. Gu Tingshuan had originally passed out from the pain. I told the imperial physician not to use anesthetic when treating him. Before long, he was jolted awake again by the sheer agony. Even so, he still forced himself to grit his teeth and defend himself. It is all Lu Yi's fault. That wicked woman ruined me, Your Highness. I was bewitched by her sorcery. You have to believe me. But Lu Yi didn't say a single word in her own defense, only wearing a bloodthirsty, crazed smile on her face. Even as she was dragged away, she shrieked. To find a devoted heart, never to part till our hair turns white. The emperor and empress were completely bewildered. My imperial brother and I exchanged a glance, then had that sorcerer dragged up. That sorcerer was only 30 years old now, yet his body was already hunched, his beard and hair all white. Those who use such a sinister method as the soul-swapping jade to harm others, the caster must pay with 50 years of their lifespan. When the sorcerer was found, he was unusually calm, only saying he had once been saved by the old marquis. A life-saving grace naturally needs to be repaid with one's life. He had no regrets for everything he did. I threw the soul-swapping jade at the sorcerer, like tossing garbage. Life-saving grace. Your life-saving grace. Why should I be the one to pay the price? Whenever I think about how the tragedy of my past life was actually caused by a life-saving grace that had nothing to do with me, my chest starts to ache unbearably, as if boiling water was churning inside. Decades of lonely, drifting days and nights made me unable to hear any sound at this moment. I could no longer suppress the hatred in my heart. I drew the sword from the nearest imperial guard and stabbed it into the charlatan's heart. Only when that charlatan's body collapsed did I feel like I was reborn. The Gu family members trembled in fear, while Father Emperor and Mother Empress looked on with eyes full of worry. Imperial brother walked up to me, his voice gentle. "Be good, Ayin, don't be afraid. No one can hurt you anymore." I dropped the sword in my hand and knelt before Father Emperor and Mother Empress. I recounted Gu Tingshuan's conspiracy to them, word by word, and everything I had experienced in my past life. When she heard that my fingertip blood had protected Liu Yi, Mother Empress held me in her arms and cried her eyes out. Father Emperor directly ordered the Gu mansion to be raided and their titles stripped, with all direct relatives exiled. Imperial brother, who had followed the rules for 20 years and was always proper and dignified, personally stepped forward and dragged up Gu Tingshuan, who was lying on the ground playing dead. Punch after punch, until Gu Tingshuan's face was a bloody mess. I didn't have Father Emperor kill Gu Tingshuan and Liu Yi directly. Instead, I had them locked in the same dungeon. Liu Yi didn't have long to live, and Gu Tingshuan was crippled. The childhood sweethearts of the past, their innocent love shattered before the face of reality. I had the prison torture them daily, causing bodily pain but not death. They grew sick of each other. Even while severely wounded themselves, they attacked each other daily with the most vicious and vulgar words. A year later, Liu Yi died, her eyes wide open, still staring in Gu Tingshuan's direction. When I went to see him in the dungeon, his exposed skin was covered with dark reddish-black scabs from dried blood. Since that thing had been cut off, he was incontinent of urine, the stench unbearable. Like a pig penned up in a pigsty, he could no longer recognize me. I heard Gu Tingshuan had spent a night with a corpse, and the next day he became dazed, crying and laughing in the dungeon, babbling about being a prince consort, a duke, saying he had sons and daughters, with a harem of wives and concubines. Gu Tingshuan had also regained memories from his previous life. From Gu Tingshuan's mad ramblings, I learned that in his previous life, after Princess Jiakeng died, Gu Tingshuan had pretended to be heartbroken for a while. He refused all matchmaking offers, claiming he wanted to mourn his late wife. He lived like this with his 2 children for 5 years. Even my imperial father and mother were deeply moved. They personally arranged a marriage for him. Gu Tingshuan couldn't refuse on grounds of filial piety, and from then on had beautiful wives and concubines in his arms. He had both face and substance, truly a winner in life. But this lifetime, he can only spend day after day in a dark, sunless prison. I've never been a kind-hearted person, so I didn't have anyone stop the torture on Gu Tingshuan. Those who harm others will eventually harm themselves. He has to pay the price for this. The day Qingyang's body was cremated, a family living in the outskirts of the capital completely vanished without a trace. I placed Qingyang's ashes in front of that mother and her 2 children, forcing them to kowtow and beg forgiveness from Qingyang, who had suffered her whole life. In the end, right in front of Qingyang, I had them all strangled. I scattered Qingyang's ashes to the wind. I had shelters established everywhere, specifically for taking in women and children, naming them Changshan Hall. to provide refuge for countless girls like Chongmyang. The wheels of history roll ever forward, and we too should keep progressing.